I was halfway through a bowl of instant ramen when the phone rang. The caller ID read unknown, which immediately told me this wasn't a business call. And my wife, estranged, I see, barely their wife, was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Anyone who needed to reach me went through her assistant. Anyone who called me directly was either selling something or about to ruin my evening. I let it ring twice, slurped another mouthful of noodles, then picked up. James? The voice on the other end was male, rough, deliberately pitched low like someone trying to sound threatening in a bad movie. Is this Mr. Carter? Depends on who's asking. Your wife, Jennifer Carter, is currently our guest. A pause. And she'd really appreciate it if you'd come pick her up. I set down my chopsticks. Let me give you some context. I'm 47 years old. I've been married to Jennifer for 6 years. 6 years of separate bedrooms, separate bank accounts, separate lives that happen to intersect at charity galas and family Thanksgivings where her parents pretend I'm not there. She's a billionaire heiress who runs Carter Industries with an iron fist and a resting face that could freeze coffee. And me? I'm the guy who married her because her father needed a stable family man to shore up his image for a board vote, and I needed the health insurance after my last startup imploded. It was a transaction. Clean, clinical, mutually beneficial. We signed papers. We shook hands. We went home to opposite ends of a 12-bedroom mansion. We haven't shared a meal in 3 months. So when this anonymous voice told me my wife had been invited to some unspecified location, my first instinct wasn't panic. It was irritation. Look, I said, picking up my chopsticks again. If this is another one of her father's tests. This isn't a test, Mr. Carter. The voice dropped even lower. If you want to see your wife alive again, you'll come alone, and oh police, and oh lawyers, and oh security team. You come, you listen, and maybe you both walk out of here. I looked at my noodles. They were getting cold. Where? Old textile mill on Carson Road. You know it. I know it. Good. You have until midnight. Pause. And, Mr. Carter, don't keep us waiting. Your wife's been crying for the last hour. It's getting annoying. The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then finished my noodles. The broth was still warm. The pork was a little chewy. I'd had worse meals. I'll tell you something about myself. I'm not a hero. I've never been a hero. I'm the guy who does the math before he does anything else. And the math here wasn't adding up. Jennifer wasn't someone you could just grab. She had a security detail that rivaled the Secret Service. 2 former Marines followed her everywhere, even to the bathroom. She had GPS trackers in her shoes, her car, her purse. Her father, my father-in-law, the ruthless old bastard, had personally designed her security protocol after the 3rd kidnapping attempt in 5 years. And now she'd just been snatched? By some amateur who called from an untraceable phone and gave me directions to an abandoned building? No. This was a setup. Had to be. Either someone was testing me again, or someone was playing a longer game. And the only person I knew who'd orchestrate something this elaborate, this theatrical, was the man who'd never trusted me from day one. Philip Carter. My father-in-law. The man who'd made it crystal clear at our wedding reception that he considered me a temporary arrangement. The man who told me to my face that if I ever so much as looked at another woman, he'd have me removed from the family so thoroughly the IRS wouldn't be able to find me. He'd been gunning for me for 6 years. A fake kidnapping? That was exactly his style. Make me look incompetent, disloyal, weak. Give his daughter a reason to file for divorce. Reclaim the family name. But there was another possibility. A darker one. What if this was real? What if someone had actually gotten to her? I sat in my study, staring at the phone, running through scenarios. If I went alone and it was a trap, I'd be walking into God knows what with no backup. If I didn't go and it was real, I'd be explaining to the press why I let my wife get killed by ransom-hungry lunatics. Either way, I was screwed. So I did what any rational man in my position would do. I called my lawyer. Mark, I said when he picked up, I need you to listen carefully. I'm about to walk into a situation that might get messy. If you don't hear from me in 4 hours, you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. What kind of situation? The kind where people ask questions and I need answers. I hung up before he could argue. Then I grabbed my keys, walked to the garage, and got into the oldest car in the fleet, a beat-up Honda Civic I'd kept for sentimental reasons. If this was Philip's game, I wasn't about to show up in a luxury SUV. I was going to look like exactly what I was. The husband who'd been told his wife was in trouble and had come running with nothing but a pair of old sneakers and a terrible sense of self-preservation. The drive to the textile mill took 20 minutes. The building was exactly what I'd expected. Hulking, abandoned, windows boarded up, graffiti tagging every visible surface. A single light flickered in the second-floor window. Whoever was inside wanted me to see it, wanted me to know exactly where to go. I parked 100 yards away, left the engine running, and walked the rest of the distance with my hands visible and my phone in my pocket. 2 men met me at the entrance, both large, both wearing ski masks, both standing a little too close to each other for professionals, which told me they weren't used to this kind of work. The one on the left grabbed my arm, patted me down, found my phone, and took it. The one on the right said, "We're going to take a walk." "Fine by me," I said. I could use the exercise. He didn't appreciate that. They marched me up a flight of creaking stairs through a doorway and into what used to be an office. There were chairs arranged in a loose semicircle, one of which was occupied by my wife. Jennifer looked exactly like you'd expect a billionaire heiress to look after several hours of captivity. Furious. She didn't look scared. Scared wasn't in her emotional vocabulary. She looked angry, bored, and vaguely inconvenienced, like she'd been forced to sit through a long board meeting without refreshments. Her dress was rumpled. Her hair had fallen out of its perfect ponytail, but she met my gaze with the same icy detachment she always did, as if to say, "Really, this is what you dragged me into?" "James," she said flatly. "You came." "I came," I said. "I thought it was the right thing to do." "Your husband the hero," she said. "How touching." The man behind the desk, the one who'd called me, stood up as I entered. He was lean, 50s, with graying hair and the kind of eyes that had seen some things. Not a thug to planner. The kind of man who thought things through before he acted. "Mr. Carter," he said, extending a hand I didn't take. "Thank you for coming. I'm Thomas." "I don't care what your name is," I said. "I care about what you want." Simple. He gestured to Jennifer. "We want access to the Carter family accounts at a small sum, by your standards, 20 million. We'll wire it to our offshore holdings, and when the transaction clears, your wife walks free." 20 million, I repeated. "And what happens when Philip finds out you've taken it?" "Philip won't find out," Thomas said smoothly. "Because you're going to authorize the transfer yourself. You're the CEO's husband. You have signing authority on her personal accounts. And if you don't," he pulled a pistol from his belt, held it casually. "Well, let's just say your wife's father will be getting a very different kind of call." I looked at Jennifer. She was watching me with that same unreadable expression, but there was something else underneath it. A flicker of curiosity, maybe. She was trying to see what I'd do. That's when I noticed the camera. It was mounted in the corner of the room, a sleek little device with a red light blinking steadily, recording every second of this conversation. And I knew, with absolute certainty, who was watching on the other end. Philip Carter. This wasn't a ransom demand. It was a test. The same kind of test he'd been running on me since day one. See if I'd break. See if I'd sell out. See if I'd sacrifice his daughter for my own skin. He wanted me to fail. "Well, Thomas," I said slowly, "I appreciate you laying that out for me, but I've got a question." Thomas tilted his head. "By all means." "What would you do if I said I couldn't authorize the transfer? If I told you I didn't have that kind of signing authority?" "You'd be lying." He smiled thinly. "We've done our homework, Mr. Carter. You have unlimited access to Jennifer's personal account. Her father set it up that way years ago. You're her authorized representative." "I know," I said. "But here's the thing. I'm not going to do it." The room went quiet. Jennifer's eyebrows shot up. For the first time since I'd walked in, she looked genuinely surprised. Thomas's smile faltered. "I'm sorry," Thomas said. "Could you repeat that?" "I said I'm not going to authorize the transfer. You're free to do whatever you want with her. Shoot her, stab her, send her back to her father in pieces. I don't care. She's not my wife. She's my bank account." The words hung in the air like smoke. Jennifer stared at me. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "What did you say?" Her voice had lost its iron composure. It sounded almost human. I repeated, turning to face her. "You've been a passenger on this ride for too long. You and your father have been running tests on me for 6 years, waiting for me to slip up. Waiting for me to show you what I really am. And now, in front of this camera that you definitely didn't know was here, I gestured to Thomas, and that man, who is clearly an actor you've hired." Thomas's face went pale. "You've given me a choice, and I've made it. I'm not saving you. I'm not helping you. I'm walking away." I turned toward the door, took 3 steps, and heard Jennifer's chair scrape back. "James." I stopped, looked back. She was standing now, her fists clenched, her face no longer composed. Furious, yes, but also desperate in a way I'd never seen. This wasn't. "The test," I said. "Your father's test, the one he's been trying to run on me since I married you. He hired these people. He set this whole thing up. And you've been sitting there pretending to be a victim to see what I do." Silence. She didn't know. Thomas's voice cut through it. "I'm not an actor, Mr. Carter. I'm a freelance consultant hired by Philip to run a psychological evaluation. Your wife was told you'd be making a business decision under pressure. She didn't know the full extent of the scenario." Jennifer looked at him, looked at me. I could see the realization dawning, that she'd been played too, that her father had used her as a pawn. "James," she said, softer now. I didn't know he was recording. I didn't know he'd set the camera up. I thought." "You thought what?" I asked. "You thought I'd come running? You thought I'd give up everything to save a woman I barely speak to? I thought you'd prove him wrong." That stopped me. "I thought," she continued, her voice cracking slightly, "that maybe you'd show him he was wrong about you. That you'd take the money, do the transfer, and prove you weren't just here for the lifestyle. I wanted you to succeed, and I didn't want you to be weak." "And now?" I asked. "Now that I've told you I'd let you die?" "Now," she said slowly, "I'm not sure what I think." I stood there for a moment, weighing my options. I could walk out, leave her here with the consultants and the camera and the elaborate trap, let Philip explain to his shareholders why his daughter's husband had abandoned her. Let him eat the public relations nightmare he'd cooked up for himself. But that wasn't who I was. I'd come into this marriage with nothing but a name and a handshake. I'd taken the money and the lifestyle and the quiet humiliation because it was the only offer on the table. But somewhere along the line, I'd started to care, not about Jennifer exactly, about the idea of her, about the possibility of something real. So I turned back to Thomas, walked to the desk, and leaned down to look him in the eye. "Tell me exactly what your instructions are," I said. "Tell me who's on the other end of that camera and what they're supposed to do when I refuse to play along." Thomas hesitated, looked at the camera, looked at Jennifer. "I can't," he said. "It's a closed loop. I don't know the final outcome of the test. I just run the script." "Then call Philip," I said. "Tell him we need to talk. Man to man. or I'm walking out that door and he's lost his daughter forever. Thomas didn't need to be told twice. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and pressed it to his ear. While he waited for an answer, I walked back to Jennifer. She was standing still, her arms wrapped around herself, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have told you. I should have figured it out sooner." "You didn't know," I said. "That's not the problem." "What is the problem?" "The problem," I said, "is that even if this is a test, there's a version of this scenario where it's real, where the men with guns aren't actors, where they don't care about your father's opinion, where they just want the money and they'll do anything to get it." Jennifer looked up at me, and in that version, I said, "You'd still be dead, because I'd still walk away." "James, I'm telling you this because you need to know. The man you married doesn't exist. I'm not a prince in a tower. I'm not a guardian angel. I'm not your father's puppet, and I'm not going to live my life being tested." Thomas's phone call ended. He looked at me, expression unreadable. "Philip wants to speak with you," he said. "On the main line." He handed me the phone. I took it, put it to my ear, and heard the voice I'd been expecting. "James," Philip said, "you've done the right thing." "Have I? I told your hired actors I'd let your daughter die." "That's exactly the right response," he said. "The whole point of his exercise was to see if you'd break down and be e.g. TOC if you'd sacrifice yourself for a woman who can't stand you. But you didn't. You kept your head, you assessed the situation, and you walked away. That's pragmatism. That's what I need in a successor." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You tested me for 6 years to see if I could be your successor? That's rich." "Not my successor," he said. "My heir. Jennifer can't run the company forever. She needs someone who can make the hard decisions. And you, believe it or not, you've just proven you can." I looked at Jennifer. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Hope, fear, both. "You planned all of this," I said into the phone. "From the beginning. Every test, every subtle humiliation, the separate bedrooms, the cold shoulders. You wanted to break me down so you could rebuild me in your image." "Anything worth doing is worth doing thoroughly," Philip said. "So, congratulations, James. You've passed." I clicked the phone off and handed it back to Thomas. "Take her home," I said. "The test is over." I drove home alone. Jennifer rode with Thomas and his crew, the consultants who'd spent the evening pretending to be kidnappers. She didn't protest when I said I needed space. She didn't look at me as I walked past her to the Civic. She just stood there in her rumpled dress, arms folded, watching me go with the same expression she'd worn during the interrogation, uncertain, calculating, and something else I couldn't quite read. The drive gave me time to think. Philip Carter had spent 6 years testing me. 6 years of subtle humiliations, locked doors, cold shoulders. 6 years of watching me squirm while he decided whether I was worthy of his empire. And now he decided I was. That should have felt like a win. Instead, it felt like a trapdoor opening underneath my feet. Because if Philip was done testing me, that meant he wanted something. And Philip Carter never wanted anything simple. The mansion was dark when I pulled up. I let myself in through the side entrance, walked through the kitchen, and found Jennifer already there, pouring herself a glass of wine from the decanter she kept in the pantry. She'd changed out of the dress into a cashmere sweater and jeans. Her hair was still a mess, but she'd scrubbed the makeup off her face, and she looked younger, more real. "You made good time," I said. "Thomas drives fast." She didn't turn around. "He's a former Secret Service agent. Philip keeps him on retainer for situations like this." "Like this," I repeated. "How many times has he done something like this?" She finally turned to face me. Her expression was unreadable again. "That's classified." "Of course it is." "But since you asked," she took a sip of wine. "This was the third scenario. The first was an attempted data breach at the company. You are the only person in the building who didn't panic and call IT. You just walked to the server room, unplugged the main drive, and went back to your office like nothing happened." "I remember that," I said. "Your IT director quit the next week." "He was fired." Philip watched the entire thing from the security feed. "You were the only person who didn't run to me or to him. You just solved the problem." "And the second test?" "Emily." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Emily was my assistant. She joined the company a year ago, young, ambitious, drop-dead gorgeous. She'd made it very clear she was interested in me. I'd made it equally clear I wasn't. I'd even had to report her to HR for inappropriate behavior. "She was a plant," I said. "The whole thing, the flirting, the late-night emails, the accidental walk-ins to my office. That was Philip. He wanted to see if you'd cheat," Jennifer said simply. "He'd hired her from an agency that specializes in infidelity testing." I finished. "I know the agency. A friend of mine works for them." Jennifer blinked. "You knew?" I suspected. Emily was too perfect, too deliberate, and she always tried too hard to get me alone. But I shrugged. I liked her work, so I kept her on until she crossed the line. Then I documented everything and gave her the boot. I figured if someone was testing me, they'd want to see how I handled it. "They did," Jennifer said. Philip was impressed. "Everything impresses your father. That's the problem." I walked to the counter, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and took a long drink. The warmth spread through my chest, loosening something tight. "He'll want to meet with you," Jennifer continued. "Probably tomorrow morning. He'll make you an offer. A seat on the board. Maybe a vice president position. Something to lock you in. And if I refuse?" "You won't refuse." She set down her wine glass and looked at me directly. "Because you've been playing this game for 6 years, James. You didn't stay because you love me. You stayed because you wanted something, and now you're close enough to get it. She was right. Of course she was right. I'd come into this marriage with nothing, no money, no connections, no leverage, but I'd had something better. Patience. I'd watched, I'd learned, I'd waited. And Philip had just handed me the keys to the kingdom. But there was something Jennifer wasn't telling me. I could see it in the way she held herself, the way she'd phrased her words. What aren't you saying? I asked. Jennifer hesitated. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to me without comment. I unfolded it. It was a receipt, a medical receipt, from a clinic I'd never heard of. This was in Thomas's pocket when he came to debrief me, she said. It fell out during the conversation. I picked it up without telling him. I looked at the receipt. The date was last week. The service listed was a DNA analysis. The patient name was a woman I didn't recognize. The test wasn't about me, Jennifer said quietly. It was about something else, someone else. Philip didn't tell Thomas what was really going on. He gave him a script and told him to follow it. But that, she pointed at the receipt, that's not part of the script. I stared at the paper. My mind was racing. Philip had hired Thomas to run a psychological evaluation, but the consultant had been carrying a receipt for a DNA test. That didn't track. Unless Philip had hired him for two things, and didn't want either of us to know about the second. Where did you find this? I asked. His jacket pocket. He'd left it on the chair when we were debriefing. I slipped it out while he was talking to his team. That's illegal. So is staging a kidnapping. Jennifer's voice was flat. What's your point? I couldn't argue with that. I studied the receipt again. The clinic was in a part of town I knew well, the same neighborhood where Philip had grown up, where he still kept a private office. The patient name was Catherine Walker. I know that name, I said slowly. Philip's second wife. The one who died in the accident. She had a daughter, a child from her first marriage. Philip adopted her. Adopted daughter, Jennifer repeated. That's where this gets complicated. How complicated? Catherine is my half-sister, Jennifer said. She was adopted by Philip when she was 6. She's older than me by 3 years. And she's been trying to get control of the company ever since her mother died. She paused. I could see her turning something over in her mind. The thing is, Jennifer said finally, Catherine doesn't just want control. She wants a DNA test. She thinks she's related to me through some other branch of the family. She's been pressuring Philip to take one, and he's been refusing. Pressuring how? Lawsuits, letters, threats. She's convinced I'm not his real daughter, that my mother had an affair and I'm the proof, and she's been leaking information to the press, the financial news, the tabloids. I felt the pieces clicking into place. So Philip staged this whole thing, I said, to see how I'd react under pressure. But that wasn't the only reason. He also wanted to distract Catherine, to make her think he was focused on something else while he bought time. Jennifer nodded. He's been running down her claims for months, trying to find out if there's any truth to them. And that receipt, she pointed at the paper in my hand. That's from the investigation. Thomas was brought in to help with the security side, not just the evaluation. I set down the receipt, my head spinning. So, where does that leave us? I asked. He tested me. I passed. Now what? I take the seat on the board and help him fight Catherine's claims? That's the plan, Jennifer said. Unless you have a better idea. I looked at the paper, looked at her, and in that moment, something clicked. A possibility I hadn't considered. What if I agree to take the seat? I said slowly, but on one condition. What condition? You let me investigate this myself. I want full access to the company's records. I want to see everything Philip has dug up on Catherine, and I want to make my own decisions about what to do with it. Jennifer stared at me. You want to control the narrative. I want to make sure that if this goes sideways, I'm not collateral damage. Philip can test me all he wants, but I'm not going to be his puppet. If Catherine's claims have merit, we need to know. If they don't, we need to prove it. Fast, before she destroys the company with bad press. You're planning something, Jennifer said. I can see it in your face. I'm planning to survive, I said. Same as always. She studied me for a long moment, then she nodded, slow and deliberate. All right, she said. You get the records, but you don't act without consulting me. This is my family, James. My company. If you're going to be part of the solution, you need to be part of the team. Team, I repeated. That's a new word for us. Jennifer almost smiled. Almost. Maybe it's time we learn to use it, she said. I sat with that for a moment, letting it sink in. The woman I'd married 6 years ago was a stranger. The woman sitting across from me now was something else. Someone who'd just stolen evidence from a private contractor and handed it to me without hesitation. Someone who'd just made it clear she was willing to work with me, not against me. I didn't know if I trusted her, but for the first time, I thought maybe I could. So how do we do this? I asked. Tomorrow morning, I walk into Philip's office, accept the seat, and then what? Start digging. You start by asking questions, Jennifer said. Subtle ones, don't let him know you're looking for anything specific. You're the new board member who wants to understand the company. You meet people, you listen, you gather information. And if Catherine approaches me, she will. Jennifer's voice was certain. She's been monitoring everything Philip does. If she hears about the test, and she'll come to you. She'll try to get you on her side. Then I let her, I said. I listen to what she has to say, and then I bring it back to you. Jennifer nodded. It was a plan. A loose one with too many moving parts, but a plan nonetheless. I looked at the receipt one more time. Catherine Walker, half-sister. Adopted daughter, a name I'd heard in passing but never paid attention to. The woman who might or might not be related to Jennifer by blood, and who is currently trying to tear down everything Philip had built. Something about this didn't add up. The DNA test was on the table. That meant Catherine had already made her play, but Thomas had been carrying the receipt, which meant Philip had already ordered the analysis. The results would be back any day now. And when they came back, everything would change. One more question, I said. What happens when the DNA test comes back? Jennifer's expression shifted. It was subtle, a flicker in her eyes, a hardening of her jaw. She knew something I didn't, something she'd been holding back. James, she said slowly, I've known Catherine for 25 years. She's my half-sister. She's been jealous of me since we were children. She's tried to destroy me before. I know. You mentioned that. The thing I haven't mentioned, Jennifer's voice dropped, is that Catherine and my father have been fighting over this test for years. He's been refusing to take it. She's been threatening to go public with allegations of paternity fraud. And now he's taken it, I said. Why the change? Jennifer looked at me, her face pale. Because last month, Catherine produced a witness. Someone who was there when my mother was pregnant with me. Someone who says my father knew the truth all along and that he covered it up. Covered up what? That I'm not his daughter, Jennifer said flatly. That I'm the result of an affair my mother had with an employee, and that Philip knew about it, but never let anyone find out. The air in the kitchen seemed to vanish. I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. You're telling me your father, the man who's been running tests on me for 6 years, might not even be your real father? Maybe. Jennifer's voice was hollow. I don't know. He won't tell me anything. He just ordered the test and said we discuss it when the results came back. And if it's true, if you're not his daughter? She took a long breath, released it. Then I have no claim to the company, and no claim to the fortune. Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, she stopped, swallowed. It would all disappear. Catherine would inherit, and I would become nothing. The realization hit me with physical force. Philip's tests, the evaluations, the subtle humiliations. All of it had been about finding someone who could protect his legacy, not because he loved Jennifer, but because he knew the truth might come out. He'd been preparing for this moment for years. He just never told her. Tomorrow, I said, when I walk into his office. Don't tell him I told you, Jennifer said quickly. Don't let him know I suspect anything. If he thinks I know about the witness or the test, he'll what? I don't know. Her voice cracked slightly. He's my father. He raised me. He gave me everything I have. But if he's been lying to me about who I am, about who I came from, she broke off, her composure finally shattering, then I don't know who he is anymore. I didn't have an answer for that. So I did the only thing I could. I crossed the kitchen, pulled Jennifer into my arms, and held her while she cried. She didn't resist. She didn't pull away. She just pressed her face into my shoulder and let herself feel everything she'd been holding in for years. I didn't love her. Not yet. But in that moment, I understood her better than I ever had. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was going to help her find the truth. Whatever it cost. When Jennifer finally pulled back, her eyes were red but dry. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and let out a shaky breath. Thank you, she said quietly. I didn't realize how much I needed that. You need a lot of things, I said. Mostly sleep. It's almost 2 a.m. I know. She looked at the clock on the microwave. We have a meeting with Philip at 9. You should get some rest. And you. I'll be fine. She hesitated, then added, James, thank you. For tonight. For everything. I nodded, not sure what to say. She turned and walked toward the stairs, then stopped at the bottom step. One more thing, she said over her shoulder. That receipt. The DNA test. If Catherine's lawyer finds out it exists. They won't, I said. Not from me. Jennifer looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable in her eyes. Then she nodded once and walked up the stairs. I stood in the kitchen, alone, with a glass of whiskey in one hand and a medical receipt in the other. The test had been about Catherine, but the consequences, they were about all of us. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the hours before dawn staring at the ceiling, running through possibilities, mapping out plans. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Philip's office. I'd take the seat on the board. I'd start asking questions. And I'd do whatever it took to protect the woman I'd married. Because whether she was his daughter or not, she was something better. She was mine. And I'd already decided I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. Philip Carter's office smelled like old money and expensive tobacco. I'd been in this room maybe a dozen times over 6 years, and every single visit had been a performance. Philip would sit behind his massive mahogany desk, lean back in his leather chair, and look at me like I was a specimen under glass. Today was different. Today, he was smiling. James, he said as I walked in, please, sit. I sat. The chair was too soft. I hated it. Jennifer had taken a seat to my right. She dressed in her power armor this morning. A charcoal pantsuit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She wasn't smiling. She was watching her father with the same expression she wore during hostel board meetings. I want to start by saying something I should have said years ago. Philip began. He folded his hands on the desk. I misjudged you, James. When my daughter brought you home, I thought you were another opportunist, another man who saw dollar signs and a pretty face. You weren't wrong, I said. I did see dollar signs. Philip chuckled. Honest. I like that. I also saw someone who was alone, struggling, and needed a lifeline. Your daughter didn't just give me money. She gave me purpose. But that's not why I stayed. Why did you stay? Because I wanted to prove you wrong. The smile stayed on Philip's face, but I saw something shift behind his eyes. He hadn't expected that answer. Good. Let's cut to the chase, I said. You ran a test. I passed. Now you're going to offer me something. A seat on the board, maybe a VP title. Something that ties me closer to the family. Philip nodded slowly. I was going to offer you the seat on the board, effective immediately. You'll have voting rights, access to all company records, and a salary commensurate with your new position. And what do I have to do in return? Nothing. Philip's smile widened. That's the thing about trust, James. Once you've earned it, you don't have to do anything to keep it. You just have to not break it. I almost laughed. Almost. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I have one condition before I accept. A condition? I want to meet Catherine. The smile vanished. Philip's face went neutral, the kind of neutral that takes years of practice. Whatever for. Because she's your daughter, I said. Your other daughter. And if I'm going to be part of this family, I need to understand every part of it, including the part that's been fighting you in court. Jennifer shifted in her chair. She knew what I was doing. She just didn't know why yet. Philip was silent for a long moment. He picked up a pen from his desk, turned it over in his hands, set it down again. Your request is unusual, he said finally. I'm an unusual man. The reason I haven't introduced you to Catherine isn't because I don't trust you, he said. It's because Catherine doesn't want to meet you. She's been very clear that she considers you an outsider, and she's not interested in building bridges. Then I'll build them myself, I said. I'll reach out to her directly. Philip's eyes narrowed. You'll do no such thing. Why not? Because Catherine is not your concern. She's a problem I'm handling, and I don't need you interfering. I leaned forward. Philip, I've been married to your daughter for 6 years. I've sat through family dinners where you barely acknowledged me. I've watched you test me, humiliate me, and evaluate me. And now you want me to sit on your board and pretend I'm part of the team while you keep secrets from me? I'm not keeping secrets. You're keeping Catherine, I said. You're keeping the DNA test. You're keeping whatever it is you're afraid of. The room went cold. Philip stared at me. Jennifer stared at me. Even the assistant who'd been hovering in the corner froze mid-stride. I'd just stepped into a minefield, but I'd known that before I walked in. How do you know about the DNA test? Philip asked. His voice was flat. Dangerous. I know a lot of things, I said. I've been paying attention for 6 years, and I've been watching, listening, learning, and what I've learned is that you're afraid of something. You've been afraid of it for a long time, and that fear is driving everything you do, including the tests you've been running on me. You're making assumptions. Am I? I pulled the folded receipt from my pocket, the one Jennifer had stolen from Thomas. I set it on the desk between us. Philip looked at it. His face went pale. He knew exactly what it was. Where did you get this? I have my sources. I didn't look at Jennifer, neither did he. The point is, I know you've been investigating Catherine's claims, and I know you've ordered a DNA test. And I know you haven't told Jennifer any of it. She's not supposed to know, Philip said through gritted teeth. This is a private family matter. I'm family, I said. By marriage, WY choice. And if you want me to accept your offer, if you want me to be the successor you've been looking for, then I need to understand the full picture. I need to understand Catherine, and I need to understand the test. And I need to understand why you've been hiding this from everyone. Philip looked at Jennifer. She met his gaze, without flinching. You told him, he said. It wasn't a question. I told him my half-sister exists, she said carefully. I told him about the rumors. I didn't tell him about the test. He found that himself. That's a lie. Is it? Jennifer's voice was steady. How would I have access to a private contractor's documents? You hired Thomas, not me. James found the receipt on his own. That's initiative. That's exactly what you wanted, remember? Philip's jaw tightened. He was cornered, and he knew it. All right, he said finally. You want the full picture? Fine, but you're not going to like what you hear. He started talking, and what he told us changed everything. I've known about Catherine's claims for 5 years, he said. When her mother died, my wife, Linda, Catherine came to me with a story. She said she'd found letters in Linda's belongings, love letters, from a man who worked for me 30 years ago. Her biological father, I said. Linda's lover, yes. Philip's voice was hollow. Linda had an affair, and I knew about it at the time that I forgave her that we moved on. We built a family, and I raised Catherine as my own. But Linda never told Catherine the truth. She died with that secret. And the letters? Jennifer asked. Catherine found them, she read them, and she started doing her own research. The man who wrote them died years ago, but Catherine tracked down his family, his medical records, everything. She built a case. A case for what? I asked. A case that Jennifer is not my daughter. Jennifer's face went white. She'd known this was possible, but hearing it from her father was something else entirely. Wait, she said. If Catherine found those letters, and she tracked down the lover's family, then why hasn't she gone public? Why all the legal pressure? Because the letters don't prove anything, Philip said. They prove Linda had an affair. They don't prove the affair produced a child. Catherine has been trying to get access to Jennifer's medical records to prove paternity fraud. I've been blocking her at every turn. Blocking her, Jennifer repeated, by ordering your own DNA test. Yes. Philip's voice was barely above a whisper. I needed to know for myself. If you're not my daughter, then Catherine has a claim to the company. She can challenge the will. She can take everything. Jennifer's voice was shaking. Everything you've built. Everything I've worked for. That's the worst case scenario, Philip said. But there's another possibility. One I've been hoping for. What's that? The test comes back positive, I said. Jennifer is your daughter. Catherine's claims are false. And the whole thing goes away. Philip nodded slowly. That's what I've been praying for. But you don't know, I said. You don't have the results yet. The results come in 3 days. The clinic called this morning. They've finished the analysis. They're just finalizing the report. 3 days. Jennifer's voice was hollow. In 3 days, everything changes. One way or the other. I looked at her. She was gripping the armrest of her chair like she might fall off if she let go. Philip, I said, there's something else you're not telling us. He looked at me sharply. The DNA test, I said. You ordered it. Thomas carried the receipt. But you didn't just hire Thomas for security. You hired him to run a psychological evaluation. And you used the kidnapping scenario to distract Catherine to make her think you were focused on something else. That's correct. So the test wasn't the only thing you were hiding. You were using the entire scenario, Jennifer's alleged kidnapping, the ransom demands, everything as cover. So Catherine wouldn't realize you were gathering evidence against her. Philip's expression shifted. It was subtle, but I saw it. Confirmation. You're smart, he said. Smarter than I gave you credit for. Stop telling me I'm smart, I snapped. Start telling me the truth. What else are you hiding? Philip sat back in his chair. He looked exhausted, older, defeated. The DNA test is part of a larger plan, he said. If it comes back positive, if Jennifer is my daughter, I'm going to use the results to push Catherine out of the company entirely. I've already been working with our lawyers to build a case that she's engaged in harassment and defamation. The test will prove her claims are baseless, and we'll sue her into bankruptcy. And if the test comes back negative? Philip was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, if the test comes back negative, then I'm going to adopt Jennifer. Legally. Formally. I'll make her my daughter in every way that counts. Jennifer blinked. You will adopt me? I've been your father in every way that matters, Philip said. I raised you, I loved you, I built this company for you. A DNA test won't change that. But it will change how the lawyers handle Catherine's claims. If you're legally adopted, you still have standing to inherit. Catherine can't challenge a legal adoption. But she can challenge the will, I said. If Jennifer isn't your biological daughter, she can argue that the adoption was a sham, that you only did it to circumvent her claims. Correct. Philip looked at me with something like respect, which is why I've been working on a backup plan. A plan that involves you. Me? James, Philip said, leaning forward. I know I've been hard on you. I know I've tested you, humiliated you, made your life difficult. But I did it because I needed to know you could handle pressure. I needed to know you had the spine to protect what's important. And now you know. Now I know, he agreed. Which is why I'm asking you for something more than a seat on the board. I'm asking you to help me save this company. Save my family. Save Jennifer's future. What do you want me to do? 3 days, Philip said. That's how long we have until the test results come back. Then I need you to keep Catherine distracted. Keep her away from the clinic. Keep her from doing anything that might interfere with the results. Distract her how? I don't know, but you're clever. You'll figure it out. But you need to be prepared for the worst. If Catherine gets wind of what I'm doing, she'll take drastic measures. She's already proven she's willing to go to any lengths to destroy us. I looked at Jennifer. She was staring at her father with a mixture of shock and admiration. She just learned he was willing to adopt her. Not because she was his biological child, but because he loved her. That was more than she'd ever expected from him. But I was looking at something else. I was looking at the fear in Philip's eyes. You're not just afraid of Catherine, I said slowly. You're afraid of something else. Something you haven't told us. Philip's face went still. Tell me what it is, I said. Or I walk. The seat. The offer. Everything. I walk. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he let out a breath. Linda, he said. My wife. The reason Catherine has the letters isn't because Linda left them behind. Catherine found them because Linda gave them to her. On her deathbed. Jennifer gasped. She told Catherine the truth, Philip continued. Everything. The affair. The lover. The possibility that Jennifer wasn't my daughter. She told Catherine to fight for what was hers. She told her to take everything from me, from Jennifer, from the family I'd built. Why would she do that? Jennifer asked. She loved you. She loved us. Because she was dying, Philip said. And dying people don't always make good choices. Linda was angry. Angry about the affair, about the secrets I'd kept, about the life she lived. She wanted to punish me, and she knew the only way to do that was through Catherine. So Catherine's been acting on her mother's dying wishes, I said. For 25 years. She's been waiting for the right moment, Philip said. And now that I've ordered the DNA test, that moment has arrived. If the results come back negative, Catherine will use them to destroy us. If they come back positive, she'll argue the test was rigged. Either way, she won't stop. She'll never stop. I sat there, processing everything. It was worse than I'd thought. So much worse. I need to meet Catherine, I said again. Not tomorrow. Today. Right now. James. I'm not asking, I said. I'm telling you, if I'm going to help you fix this, I need to talk to her face to face. I need to see her, hear her story, understand what she's really after. Philippe sighed. Fine. I'll set up a meeting, but you'll meet her on neutral ground, and you'll have Jennifer with you. Agreed. One more thing, Philip said. If Catherine tries to get you to work against us, if she offers you something, asks you to spy on us, anything, you tell me immediately. We can't afford any more secrets. I looked at him. We've been keeping secrets for 6 years. What's one more? Philip didn't answer. He just looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Fear. He was afraid of Catherine, but he was also afraid of something else, something he hadn't admitted yet. And I knew in that moment that whatever came next, it was going to change all of us. Forever. Jennifer and I left Philip's office together. We walked to the elevator in silence, waited for the doors to close, and then she turned to me. Thank you, she said, for pushing him, for asking the questions I couldn't. He was going to keep hiding things from us, I said. Someone had to break through. You did. She looked at me, her eyes softening. That took guts, James. Real guts. I'm not a hero, I said. I just don't like being lied to. Neither do I. She paused. But you have to understand, this is bigger than us. Bigger than the company. If Catherine gets control, she'll dismantle everything Philip built. She'll sell off pieces, lay off employees, destroy the legacy. She doesn't care about the people. She just wants revenge. Then we stop her, I said, before she gets the chance. Easier said than done. Jennifer pulled her phone from her pocket, looked at the screen. Philip just texted me. Catherine agreed to meet. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., at a coffee shop downtown. Tomorrow, I repeated. That gives us less than 24 hours to prepare. We'll have to work together, Jennifer said. Actually work together. Not as strangers sharing a house, but as partners. Can you do that? I looked at her. She was serious. She was asking me to trust her, to commit to something real. I didn't have a good answer, but I didn't have a better option. Fine, I said. We work together, but you need to be honest with me. No secrets. No half-truths. If we're going to do this, we do it right. Jennifer extended her hand. Deal, she said. I shook it. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. We walked out into the bright afternoon sun, and for the first time in 6 years, I felt something shift between us. IT wasn't love. IT wasn't even trust. But it was something close. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that Catherine's meeting was going to be the hardest conversation of my life.